This video is entitled, on YouTube at least, so our recording of this will be titled Ultimate Wisdom Meditation Class. I don't know about that, but we are going to be gathering together and looking at some Zen teachings together. Hi there, Sharinia, and Mook, and Vozi, and C. Glad that you're all making the choice to show up here, be here with me. Everyone's invited to share their camera. Hi there. If you're comfortable, please do share your camera. We can see each other. Hello there, Mei Lee, over on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you say hello. Want to know that you're here joining us. Okay, Steve and Robert, great to see you. Steve, I'm making good use of the incense that you sent me. I think everyone's been enjoying it. If you're a monk, you might as well have some incense as well going on. And Gruyere, hi there. I love your cheese. Yeah, okay. And some people are here, but they are deafened, so they wouldn't be able to hear anyway. So, great. So what I was thinking is that today we will look at some of these Zen stories, these really curious, kind of strange stories about Zen masters interacting and kind of the way that they express their enlightenment, they express their wisdom, and the ways that they respond to people expressing their wisdom, expressing their enlightenment. So that's what we're going to look at today. And the first story, I need to just grab my library. So give me one moment. This first story is going to be involving the sixth patriarch, who's really like right at the core of Zen masters. There's a teaching, a sutra, original Buddhist teaching in the Mahayana Zen tradition called the Platform Sutra. And this is about Huineng. This is about the sixth patriarch. And so it's said that there was this kind of dull person, right? Not very smart. They couldn't even read. And they just, did manual labor, chopped firewood, this kind of thing to support themselves, to support their family, just like a kind of, maybe we would say a lower IQ person, something like that. So one day this person is walking around and they hear a monk chanting a sutra. They hear a monk chanting the Diamond Sutra, something like this, a profound Buddhist teaching kind of thing. And upon them hearing that sutra, they became enlightened just out of there. No training, no practice, no living at a monastery, no attending intensive meditation retreats, no consistent meditation practice or anything, but just a sound, just hearing that chanting brought that person to illumination, brought this monk, Huineng, to illumination. And so then there's this story of Huineng then going to kind of seek out a Zen master and wanting to become a monk, and then getting that transmission to be handed down. So this sixth patriarch, Huineng, is one of the most famous Zen masters in history. And so the first story we're going to look at today is in that tradition. Huineng is involved with it. All right. So before we start our reading, let's pay our taxes. Go ahead and find a comfortable meditation position. Find your breath, find your heart. You can close your eyes, turn the mind inside. Begin to become aware of your breathing, your bodying. Can become aware of your bones. Become aware of your fat, your muscle, your blood. Can become aware of your brain. Notice what's happening in the body right now. Anything stand out? Anything that you strongly notice? Feel the breath deeply in the body and, start to become aware of what's happening right now inside. Not what we want, not what we don't want, not our thoughts about the situation, but breathing deep and becoming aware of what is happening at this present moment. What do we notice? What are we aware of? So let's begin with our Zen story. Chan Master Zen Master Yung Chia Suan Chiao of Wen Chou was a native of Yung Chia. His original name was Tai. When he was still young, he left his home to become a Buddhist monk. He studied all the sutras, Vinayas, and commentaries. Being particularly well versed in the profound and subtle teachings of cessation and contemplation maintained by the Tiantai school. Even in the practice of walking, sitting, laying down, standing, he was always in deep contemplation of Zen. Encouraged by another Zen master, he set out one day with another monk of Tungyang to visit the sixth patriarch in Shaoqi. When he arrived there, he shook his staff and held a vase in his hand. He walked around the patriarch 3 times and then stood still. So this very accomplished, kind of very enlightened, seemingly enlightened monk is now going to meet this great grand master. And he shows up to the temple, and the way that he greets him, the way that he meets this master, is that he shook his staff, held a vase in his hand, picked up and held a vase in his hand, walked around the Grand Master, walked around the sixth patriarch 3 times, and then stood still. The patriarch said to him, "A Buddhist monk is he who follows the 3,000 regulations and performs the 80,000 detailed duties. Where do you come from, sir? Why should you have such great self-pride?" Life and death are a serious matter, replied Yung Chia, and death follows life with terrible speed. So this kind of very eccentric and very spontaneous way of expressing it shows that Yung Chia, this monk who's coming to meet the Grand Master, has this degree of confidence in their attainment, confidence in their understanding. And so the Grand Master, the sixth patriarch, says, a Buddhist monk is someone who follows 3,000 regulations, all these rules of conduct, all these ways of being, and performs the 80,000 detailed duties, very specific. You need to do all these things. This is what a Buddhist monk is. You need to be very focused on doing what you need to do. So where do you come from, sir, you presenting as a Buddhist monk? And why should you have such great self-pride? Yung Chia replied, "Life and death are a serious matter," replied Yung Chia, "and death follows life with terrible speed." So Yung Chia replied to this great master and said, look, life and death are serious. Maybe that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm concerned with. And they follow one another with a terrible speed. We can die at any moment. In whatever way you imagine yourself to be, that can die at any moment. And then even in a more refined way, we can say that moment by moment, arising and passing away are taking place. Moment by moment, birth and death are taking place. So where do you come from, sir? Said the master. Why should you have such great self-pride? Life and death are a serious matter, replied Yung Chia, and death follows life with terrible speed. Why don't you attain no birth and free yourself from this speed? Inquired the patriarch. Attainment is no birth, and basic freedom is never speedy, replied Yung Chia. That is so, exclaimed the patriarch. So this is just like a test to see into their understanding. The patriarch, the Grand Master, tested, do you actually understand? Do you actually get it? Have you actually attained enlightenment? And this response from Yung Chia of attainment is no birth, and basic freedom is never speedy, brought the patriarch to say, that's so. Basically giving a kind of transmission, like that is, yes, as far as I know, that is, you've got it, you understand it. At this, everyone in the assembly was astonished, and it was not until then that Yung Chia observed the rule of bowing to the patriarch. So this kind of confirmation from the master, yeah, that's correct, was really surprising to people. That this monk who kind of came out of nowhere had this great and profound understanding that was similar, in line with that of the Grand Master, the great teacher. And it wasn't until that time that Yung Chia kind of showed respect, paid respect to the master. At this, everyone in the assembly was astonished, and it was not until then that Yung Chia observed the rule of bowing to the patriarch. A little while later, he came to the patriarch to bid him goodbye. "Are you not leaving too soon?" asked the patriarch. So, kind of a very friendly way of saying, why don't you stick around, Are you not leaving too soon? Basically, motion does not move. How can you say I am leaving too soon? Challenged Yung Chia. Who is he who is aware of no movement? Asked the patriarch. You, master, are making this discrimination, replied Yung Chia. The master responded, "You have grasped very well the meaning of no birth." How can no birth have meaning? If it has no meaning, who can differentiate it? Even though one may differentiate it, it is still meaningless. The patriarch exclaimed, "Good, good. Please stay here for at least one night." So it's a very warm and sincere invitation. So this kind of, for the Zen master, for people meeting in this way, that cutting, that refutation is not really abrasive, but it's actually enlightening. That challenge, that, well, what are you talking about? What are you holding on to? Why are you stuck on that? And to kind of refute, to let go, is that way of being in relationship, rather than adding on all of these shared mutual attachments or agreements. This mind and your mind are very similar. We believe this, we believe that, so we are in relationship. But here, for the masters, for the people who are really with it, the refutation is the heart of the mind. No mind is the heart of the mind. No birth is the heart of the situation. And there's a lot of creativity and spontaneity and flexibility in all this as well. So what do we think about this story? Any thoughts, any idea? All right, here we go. The first way to discuss suchness, and now we're moving on to the teachings from this monk, the expressions of this monk. You want to go, Bobby? You want to say? We're not in a rush. It said right here, basic freedom is never speedy. So let's be basically free. You want to share something, Bobby? Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I couldn't hear. Oh, hello? Look at me, I'm talking over people. Okay, I can hear you now.
Thank you. I believe Buddha talked about not taking any teaching for granted, to, sort of test everything, investigate it for yourself and find out the truth. So that came to mind as this monk was sort of testing the master, not assuming immediately that he is a true master by reputation, but instead, doing these, like you said, eccentric things to sort of test and see what the response would be, and only then confirming, based on his response, that there's a true understanding of the way.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah, thank you. That's what I love about it, because I mean, this is serious stuff. These monks in these situations, it's all about intimacy. It's all about, like, right there on the nose, right there at the tip of the spear, this reality and this community taking place. We're not like, okay, you're this person, I'm this person, this is the way that things go, but right here in the present moment, right here alive. And so in the midst of that intimacy, in the midst of that vulnerability, that rawness, that exposure, to show up and present your understanding in that way, to test in that way, shaking a staff, holding up a vase, walking around the monk 3 times, the master 3 times, and then looking at them, to see what they will do, what they will say, how they will understand. It's It's really curious kind of way of doing things, but it's also there's such a lightness to it. There's such an open-heartedness to it. There's not that rigidity. And that then after kind of finding that mutual understanding, that mutual truth of no mind at the heart of that master's understanding, then paying respect. Not because they had this special experience or actually this special wisdom, but because they weren't having special wisdom. They weren't having special experience. They weren't stuck on anything. They were just aware. They were unchained, so to speak. Anyone else to share something about this story?
Do you know if the gesture of holding up the vase and walking around the patriarch, did that have some meaning to them in that time that would be known to them, to each of them, that I don't have? Or would it literally have just been kind of a nonsense or something that he couldn't assume the other would have known? Was it a gesture of nonsense, or did it have some other meaning? Do you know?
Well, it's a gesture of intimacy. It's a gesture of sincerity. It's not something that's done loosely, And so the precursor to getting into this story was that, this monk who presented in this way was had studied all the sutras, the codes of conduct, the commentaries. Was well versed in the profound and subtle teaching of cessation and contemplation maintained by the Tiantai school. So this is the whole image that we have about monks that even continues to this day. This is the power of monks, is that they're not involved in superfluous activities. And especially this monk is being pointed to, this is not nonsense. This is about as antithetical to nonsense as you can possibly get. So there's a force, there's a sincerity, there's a power behind it that when you're in that situation, when the monk does that, something like that, you don't have the option to say, well, this is nonsense. You're taken aback by that expression of intimacy, of sincerity, of showing up. Each footstep is like an earthquake, something along those lines. So it's a real profound expression of sincerity. Sometimes they, and non-attachment, an expression of no mind. Sometimes certain things would be used, especially like in the retelling of this kind of story. So maybe there's talk about this or talk about that had a cultural, they will use a cultural aspect to present in a certain way. But the heart of it is the spontaneity, the sincerity, the no mind, the no birth, the no death that is embodied in each and every moment of that practice, of that expression. Am I able to confuse you? Am I able to trick you? Am I able to put you in a place where you don't know what's going on, where you are nonsensical because you don't see the truth in what's happening right now? So it's a test, it's a challenge. Go ahead, Algernon.
Those expressions of no mind, I don't have when I reach for that, I don't have a good understanding of what's meant in that case. But I figure I'll learn.
Let's read the story one more time, and then maybe we'll move on to another story. So, when the monk arrived to meet the sixth patriarch, the Grand Master, he shook his staff and held a vase in his hand. He walked around the Grand Master 3 times and then stood still. The Master said to him, A Buddhist monk is he who follows the 3,000 regulations and performs the 80,000 detailed duties. Where do you come from, sir? Why should you have such great self-pride? How are you so confident to act in this way, to present in this way? You didn't bow. You walked around me 3 times. The monk replied, life and death are a serious matter, and death follows life with terrible speed. The master responded, why don't you attain no birth and free yourself from this speed? Attainment is no birth, and basic freedom is never speedy. That's so, exclaimed the master. At this, everyone in the assembly was astonished, and it was not until then that Yung Chia observed the rule of bowing to the patriarch. A little while later, he came to the patriarch, came to the Grand Master to bid him goodbye, to say goodbye. Are you not leaving too soon? Asked the patriarch. Basically, motion does not move. How can you say that I am leaving too soon? Challenged Yung Chia. Who is he who is aware of no movement? Asked the patriarch. You, master, are making this discrimination, replied Yung Chia. You have grasped very well the meaning of no birth. The master said. Yung Chia replied, how can no birth have meaning? The master said, if it has no meaning, who can differentiate it? So if this story has no meaning, who can differentiate it? Who can discern? Who can make it into meaning this or make it that? Even though one may differentiate it, it is still meaningless. Even though one may explain it, it is still meaningless. The master exclaimed, good, good. Please stay here for at least one night.
On a more nonsensical note, do you monks have these profound conversations? Do you guys just settle with hello? Just wondering.
Well, we're not all living in ancient China with grand masters, grand Zen masters. You know, there's different traditions. There's different ways of living the monk life, and there's different ways of approaching this profound truth. So a good rule is do your best. Be simple. You know, find freedom in this moment, whatever it is, wherever it is. You don't need to act in a special way. You know, this is why the master said that this monk, you know, where are you? Where do you come from? What kind of state do you have such pride to act in this way, to put on airs in this way? And present it, expressed in that way because they had a deep experience, a deep understanding. So this is one of the ways that I often think about it. So people ask me, you know, sometimes people ask me, where am I from? Where have you come from? Right? So maybe the Zen answer is to throw a bucket at them or something, or whatever, you know, whatever you might imagine the Zen answer is, right? Where do you come from? Or I might like to say, why I come from this present moment. okay? Or, throw a bucket, even more extreme. It would be a little bit superficial to do something like that. But, then I say, okay, I'm from this place, etc., get into a story, get into this idea. Well, the truth is that to the degree that you have the experience of coming from this present moment, to the degree that you have this familiarity, this relationship, this honesty, this integrity to say that I'm coming from here in this present moment, or then to express it through action, give them a flower, maybe not to throw a bucket, make them laugh, tell a joke, whatever it might be. But you can't put that on. You can't pretend about that. Then it's not that. It's that spontaneity and that sincerity to act from the heart. And so with this story, we say, well, why did he hold up a vase and why did he shake his staff? Because you're confused. That's why. Because you're stuck. That's why. So, but in those motions, in those movements, in that walking around 3 times, maybe there might be some cultural meaning as well, some like academic cultural background. But it was in total sincerity of being right there in the present moment, cutting through space and time, cutting through birth and death with each and every moment, each and every breath. Does that make a little bit more sense, Algernon?
Yes, it does. And it's Matthew.
Okay,
When you put the
Matthew.
parentheses in there.
Wonderful, yeah. Let me see here. I can change the nickname somehow. Well, I will sometime, or someone can.
That's right. I'll put parentheses on there.
Here, I got it. Matthew. Usually we like to use our first names in the server, so you're welcome to do that. Okay, so now we're going to go into some more of these kind of Zen stories that that also express in a similar way what we just talked about, that kind of mindset of cutting through our duality, our enslavement by words and phrases, our enslavement by this kind of judgmental mind. Anyone else have something to share? Some ideas on this topic? So the master ascended the hall. We're now going to our dear friend Lin Ji. Some stories of Lin Ji. Zen stories from the heart of the temple in ancient China, wherever it is. The master ascended the hall and said, "Here in this lump of red flesh, there is a true person with no rank. Constantly he goes in and out of the gates of your face. If there are any of you who don't know this for a fact, then look, look." At that time, there was a monk who came forward and asked, "What is he like, the true man with no rank?" The master got down from his chair, seized hold of the monk, and said, "Speak, speak." The monk was about to say something, whereupon the master let go of him, shoved him away, and said, "True man with no rank. What a shitty asswiper." The master then returned to his quarters. How about this story? Okay. Another story here. Constant Attendant Wang, head of the prefecture, so this local government official, and his various officials requested the master to step up to the lecture seat. So these military officials in ancient China, they are quite involved with Buddhism. At a certain time, Buddhism is, Buddhist monks are kind of giving guidance and giving lectures and teachings to governmental officials and important people in the society of China at a certain time. So Constant Attendant Wang, head of the prefecture, and his various officials requested the master to step up to the lecture seat. And a lot of times this relationship between government officials has not only to do with like material support, donating and supporting the temple, but also making sure that the temple can function and not have issues, regulatory issues. So it's important that the master would comply with these government officials. And once again, it's where that the relative and the absolute kind of come together, because these monks, especially these great Zen masters, the idea is that no one can move them. No, there's the moon itself crashing to the earth can't move them. But now they've taken the responsibility, the position of being a head of a monastery, of being a head of a temple. They need resources, they need support from all different kinds of people. They need to cooperate. So when a government head like that asks them to come up to the seat, they do have a responsibility. So the master ascended the hall and said, "Today, having found it impossible to refuse, I have complied with people's wishes and stepped up to the lecture seat. If I were to discuss the great concern of Buddhism from the point of view of a follower of the tradition of the Zen masters, then I could not even open my mouth, and you would have no place to plant your feet." Can you hear this one? So the government officials, the supporters, the important supporters of this this monk, this master, requested the master to come up and give a lecture. The master ascended the hall and said, "Today, having found it impossible to refuse, I have complied with people's wishes and stepped up to the lecture seat. If I were to discuss the great concern of Buddhism from the point of view of a follower of the sect of the Chan patriarchs, so the enlightened masters in the Zen tradition, if I were to discuss the great concern of Buddhism from their point of view, from that point of view, then I could not even open my mouth, and you would have no place to plant your feet. But today I have been urged to speak by the Constant Attendant, so why should I hide the principles of our sect, of our tradition? Perhaps there are some valiant generals here who would like to draw up their ranks and unfurl their banners. Let them prove to the group what they can do." So this is a bit of an invitation and a challenge, okay? A monk asked, "What is the basic meaning of Buddhism?" The master gave a shout, okay? The monk bowed low. The master said, "This fine monk is the kind who's worth talking to." Someone asked, "Whose style of song do you sing? Whose school of teaching do you carry on?" The master said, "When I was at Huang Po's place, I asked a question 3 times, and 3 times I got hit." The monk started to say something. The master gave a shout and then struck the monk, saying, "You don't drive a nail into the empty sky." A study director said, so these people, these different people, different backgrounds keep stepping up, speaking up. A study director said, the 3 vehicles and 12 divisions of the teachings make the Buddha nature clear enough, don't they? So 3 vehicles, the Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana traditions of Buddhism, I'm pretty sure. 3 vehicles of Buddhism. Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana. Kind of like Chinese Buddhism, Southeast Asian Buddhism, and Tibetan Buddhism, basically. And the 12 divisions of the teachings. Sutras, summaries, testimonies of realization, historical explanations, detailed explanations, discourses, prophecies, poetic summaries, all of these, all aspects of the Buddhist tradition and canon. Okay? So a study director said, the 3 vehicles and 12 divisions of the teachings make the Buddha nature clear enough, don't they? The master said, wild grass. It's never been cut. The study director said, surely the Buddha wouldn't deceive people. The master said, Buddha, where is he? The study director had no answer. The master said, are you trying to dupe me right in front of the constant attendant? Step aside. You're keeping other people from asking questions. So it goes back to what we read recently about this no mind being a sword of wisdom, no thought being a sword of wisdom, a fire that cuts through our delusions, our complicated thinking. The master resumed, saying, this religious gathering today is held for the sake of the one great concern of Buddhism. Are there any others who want to ask questions? Come forward quickly and ask them. But even if you open your mouths, what you say will have nothing to do with that concern. Why do I say this? Because Shakyamuni Buddha said, did he not, that the Dharma is separate from words and writings, and is not involved with direct or indirect causes. So that is that the truth is not limited by cause and effect. The truth is beyond cause and effect. The truth is beyond birth and death. So let's go back to the study director. A study director said, the 3 vehicles and 12 divisions of the teachings make the Buddha nature clear enough, don't they? So that all the Buddhism that we currently already have, the way that it's being presented, the way that it's been codified, all the early Buddhist teachings and all of the different schools of Buddhism that are already established, they make this case clear enough, don't they? They make the Buddha nature clear enough, don't they? Why are you trying to go about this in a different way? Why are you presenting this in this kind of abrasive way, right? The master said, wild grass. It's never been cut. The study director said, surely the Buddha would not deceive people. So that answer is not sufficient. It's not actually answering my question, but you're making a trick. The master said, Buddha, where is he? Where is the Buddha? The study director had no answer. The master said, are you trying to dupe me right in front of the constant attendant? Step aside. You're keeping other people from asking questions. So get out of the way. If you're going to be stuck in duality, if you're going to be stuck in right and wrong, this and that, then you're never going to be able to to get it. You're always going to be bound. The master resumed, saying, "This religious gathering today is held for the sake of the one great concern of Buddhism. Are there any others who want to ask questions? Come forward quickly and ask them. But even if you open your mouths, what you say will have nothing to do with that concern." Why do I say this? Because Shakyamuni said, did he not, that the Dhamma, is separate from words and writings, and is not involved with direct or indirect causes. It is because you do not have enough faith that today you find yourself tied up in knots. I'm afraid you will trouble the constant attendant and the other officials, and keep them from realizing their Buddha nature. It's best for me to withdraw. With that, he gave a shout, and then said, "People with so few roots of faith, will the day ever come when they see the end of this? Thank you for standing so long." Oh, there's some notes here. So a study director is actually a high-ranking monk of a tradition, of a sect outside of Zen. So not a Zen monk who devotes themselves to the study in the scriptures. So that question was very much a challenge to the master. Anyone have some thoughts about this? Sharing about this interesting story?
I like this one better than the other stories we've heard today because I think it's relatable, at least how you can get lost in a lot of detail and there's a science to so many different things or aspects of life. And the imagery there of uncut wild grass growing, it's like you can get so lost in your head on trying to find the answer instead of trying to practice or be the answer. So I like this story a lot.
Be the answer and do your best. Be the answer at this present moment, right? That's what I got from it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then inconvenience becomes convenience. Boundaries become pathways, because we're being the answer, and all of those boundaries are meeting us to be, to face, to show up, to refresh, to restart. And if you approach it in another way, well, whatever you're using to approach it that way, your body or your mind or your thinking, whatever it might be, that's all faulty. That's all going to come crumbling down. So what are you going to do then? When the good circumstances, the good situations aren't there, what are you going to do? Flounder and but if you can be the answer at this moment, every phenomena, every situation is reminding, encouraging. Okay, we do have one question over on the YouTube, and that is about Is any amount of judgmental mind usable in daily life, such in picking berries between a poison berry or a blueberry? I can't make sense of that from the last one. You don't need to make sense of it. You just need to not reject picking and choosing. You're thinking that not picking and choosing is a form of picking and choosing. But actually not picking and choosing is inclusive of picking and choosing. Because you're not picking and choosing. So you can pick and choose freely. You can use freely. You can do what you need to do. You can do your best and not get stuck. Don't be confused by confusion. In picking and choosing, don't get stuck in picking and choosing. Be aware, be skillful. Okay, so we'll do one last story here. This is different, has a little bit of a different style. It's part of a section called testing and rating. Testing and rating. So we'll read this one, spend a few moments together, and then we'll see what happens. Huang Po had occasion to go into the temple kitchen. He asked the monk in charge of cooking rice, "What are you doing?" The monk said, "I am picking over the rice for the other monks." This is the in the traditional time, you have to look through all the rice to get out stones and get out little things. You need to make sure there aren't any tiny stones in the dried rice. And rice has been a food staple in Buddhist societies, for thousands of years. So Huang Po goes to the kitchen and asks this monk in charge of cooking, "What are you doing?" The monk said, "I am picking over the rice for the other monks." Huang Po said, "How much do they eat in one day?" 2.5 pickles, Piculs. So it's a degree, it's an amount. It's a term for a certain amount. Huang Po said, "How much do they eat in one day?" 2.5 pickles, 2.5 bushels, we can say, said the monk. "Isn't that too much?" said Huang Po. "I'm afraid it's not enough," said the monk. Huang Po immediately struck him a blow. So Huang Po, this is a kind of well-known monk. Huang Po had occasion to go into the temple kitchen. This is a monk. They're all living together. He asked the monk in charge of cooking rice, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" The monk said, "I am picking over the rice for the other monks." Huang Po said, "How much do they eat in one day?" 2.5 bushels, said the monk. "Isn't that too much?" said Huang Po. "I'm only afraid it's not enough," said the monk. Huang Po immediately struck him a blow. The monk mentioned the incident to the master. The master said, "For your sake, I will put this old fellow to the test." As soon as the master had gone to Huang Po's quarters and was standing in attendance by him, Huang Po mentioned his earlier conversation with the monk in charge of cooking rice. The master said, "The monk didn't understand. I hope, Reverend, you will be good enough to take his place and give us a turning word." Then the master said, "Isn't that too much rice?" Huang Po said, "Why not say, 'Tomorrow you'll have a taste of it'?" The master said, "Why say tomorrow? Have a taste of it right now." As soon as he had finished speaking, he gave Huang Po a slap. Huang Po said, "This raving idiot, coming in here again and pulling the tiger's whiskers." The master gave a shout and left the room. Later, Wei Shan asked Yang Shan, what were those two worthy gentlemen up to? Yang Shan said, "What do you think, Reverend?" Wei Shan said, "When you bring up a son, you begin to understand a father's kindness." Yang Shan said, "That's not it." Wei Shan said, "Well, what do you think?" Yang Shan said, "It's like bringing home a thief and losing everything in the house." Has anyone here brought home a thief? What have you lost? What have you gained? What's this all about? So these encounters, this testing and rating, we can say is encounters that test and reveal the degree of a person's religious understanding and experience and the correctness of the person's outlook. So this Zen understanding, this power of Zen, is to be free and spontaneous and present moment minded in any situation, at any moment, to be unbound, to be unchained, not to be locked in. So these ways are the ways of testing that quality of mind, that quality of understanding, that quality of outlook, and how you approach situations and interact in situations from that place. So let's read this story one more time, and then we'll see if we have anything to say about it or discuss about it. We'll see what happens. Huang Po had the occasion to go into the temple kitchen. He asked the monk in charge of cooking rice, "What are you doing?" The monk said, "I am picking over the rice for the other monks." Huang Po said, "How much do they eat in one day?" 2.5 bushels, said the monk. "Isn't that too much?" said Huang Po. "I'm only afraid it's not enough," said the monk. Huang Po immediately struck him a blow. The kitchen monk mentioned the incident to the master of the temple. The master said, "For your sake, I'll put this old fellow to the test." As soon as the master had gone to Huang Po's quarters and was standing in attendance by him, Huang Po mentioned his earlier conversation with the monk in charge of cooking rice. The master said, "The monk didn't understand. I hope, Reverend, you will be good enough to take his place and give us a turning word." Turning point in a situation, leading the listener to understanding. So the master says here, the monk didn't understand. The monk did not get it. So I hope that you'll be good enough, kind enough at this present moment to take his place, to take that place of getting it at this moment and give us a turning word. Then the master said, "Isn't that too much rice?" Huang Po said, "Why not say, 'Tomorrow you'll have a taste of it'?" The master said, "Why say tomorrow? Have a taste of it right now." As soon as he had finished speaking, he gave Huang Po a slap. Huang Po said, "This raving idiot, coming in here again and pulling the tiger's whiskers." The master gave a shout and left the room. Balance, stability, patience, compassion, sincerity, willing to act, to do our best to wake someone up, to say, get with it. Is a slap worthy of a fight? No, it's not. Is a slap inherently violence? No, it's not. And in this case, it's an act of compassion. Wake up. Get with it. Later, Wei Shan asked Ye Shang, what were those two worthy gentlemen up to, those worthy people, these very wise monks? What were they up to? Yang Shan said, what do you think, Reverend? Wei Shan said, when you bring up a son, you begin to understand a father's kindness. So Wei Shan said something about there's a kindness here, there's a compassion here in why they're interacting with one another in that way. Yang Shan said, that's not it. Wei Shan said, well, what do you think? Yang Shan said, it's just like bringing home a thief and losing everything in the house.
So did the kitchen monk ever get it?
You have to go into the annals to find it, Kit. All right. So let's take a few moments to do nothing together. Go ahead and find a really nice meditation position. We don't have time for you to climb on top of a mountain or to get into a hot tub. But we have time to find a comfortable, stable position for your body right now. Finding the heart, the breath. Become aware of the body sitting here at this present moment. Not to relax, not to sit in quietude, but what is this? Curious. We don't not know, not assumed that we know what's happening right now. But from this curiosity, this intrigue, this interest, what is this? What's happening right now? Just sitting, breathing, and being aware. Looking closely. So we will finish today with a chanting of the Heart Sutra. Everyone's invited to bring their hands together and listen deeply as we chant the Heart Sutra. And I will post, I will share a copy of this. If you don't have it, maybe you can pull it up if you want to try and chant along. As a matter of fact, I can share it in voice text, just in case anyone does want to follow along. Okay, it's there in the voice text channel. But you don't need to, you can have it for future use. If you can't pull it up right now, it's okay. All right, everybody bringing our hands together. Welcome to chant along with me. Mahaprajna Paramita Heart Sutra. When the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was coursing in the deeper Prajna Paramita, she realized that all the 5 skandhas are empty, thereby transcending all sufferings. O Shariputra, form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness not other than form. Form is precisely emptiness, and emptiness precisely form. So also are sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. Shariputra, this form of the emptiness of all dharmas is non-arising, non-perishing, non-impure, non-pure, non-increasing, and non-decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, and no sensation, perception, volition, or consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. There is no realm of the eye all the way up to no realm of consciousness. There is no ignorance and also no ending of ignorance. Through to no aging and death, and no ending of aging and death. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom and also no attainment. With nothing to attain, bodhisattvas relying on prajna paramita have no obstructions in their minds. Having no obstructions, there is no fear, and departing far from confusion and delusion, they reach ultimate nirvana. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future, relying on prajna paramita, attain supreme Buddhahood. Therefore, the Prajna Paramita is the great mantra of power, the great mantra of wisdom, the supreme mantra and the unequaled mantra which is able to transcend all sufferings. It is real and not false. Therefore he uttered the mantra of Prajna Paramita by saying, Gate, gate, para, somgate, bodhisvaha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we can make 3 deep bows. Okay. So thank you all for being here. What a treat. How inspiring. All of us gathered together, right? And this evening is a big evening. We're going to start our Buddha Book Club. We're going to start our reading, our exploration of Flowers in the Dark, this book on the topic of healing our trauma with mindfulness, with compassion, with our attention. And that's going to be the beginning of a series of gathering together and working through this book. So please be ready to show up on time, especially if you plan to be here in the Discord. Be here early, be here 5 minutes early. Probably a lot of people want to attend. Also, if you plan to support and to help, take turns reading, things like that, make sure that you're here, you're ready, can share our cameras, and practice together and kind of go into this book. All right? See you all this evening. Be happy, be peaceful, be free from suffering, and really, thank you for showing up here. Okay? Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Bhante.
All of you YouTubers and all of you TikTokers, if you're on TikTok, make sure you know about YouTube, that you watch through YouTube, and join our channel on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, make sure that you're here and ready at 8 p.m. tonight on the YouTube channel, and we'll go live and we'll start our Buddha Book Club, all right? Okay, bye-bye.